A very good morning to you. How are you doing? Welcome to Motivation Monday right here on Family TV. We're live on Family Radio 316 as well. So glad that you took the time to hook up with us today. Interesting topic I have for you today, and I know it will be beneficial to you. When we talk about personalities, many times we think of introvert, extrovert. I'm an introvert. I don't talk a lot. I want my own space. I prefer to stay alone. I'm an extrovert. I'm the life of the party. I want to go where things are happening. I'm loud. But is that all there is when we talk about personalities? You know, is it important to know your personality? How does personality affect life and how you relate with other people? Those are some of the things we want to look at today as we talk about understanding your personality, because I think it's very, very, very important. I have an amazing guest. I will be introducing him to you in the next short while, inviting you to be a part of this conversation. If you have a question, feel free to do so, but I'll be the first one to ask a question. Do you know your personality? If you do know your personality, tell me what you think your personality is. If you have no idea, just tell me I have no idea, because I believe if you have no idea, once you listen into today's conversation, you will begin to get a picture of what your personality trait could be. So 20316 is the SMS line. The WhatsApp number is 0786 316 316. Tell me, do you know your personality type? It's Monday, and every Monday we have Motivation Monday. Today we're going to be looking at understanding your personality, and I'm throwing out the question, do you know your personality type? Amos from Nakuru is saying, honestly, I have no idea my personality type, and I'm eagerly waiting to hear and understand. Thank you for that. Timothy Rateng, you say you're phlegmatic. You know your personality. That is who you are. Well, let's listen in today. Maybe you can continue to learn a thing or two about personality types. This morning, I'm so privileged to be hosting Dr. Les Brickman. Dr. Les Brickman, when you talk coach, this is the coach of coaches, I'm telling you. You know, nowadays everybody is a coach, but if you are looking for a proper coach with proper training, and if you're looking for somebody who can actually train you to become a coach, this is the man to talk to. He has been helping leaders worldwide to achieve their maximum potential, and he does this through coaching. Dr. Les Brickman, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to be part of the show today. Karibu sana. Let's begin by just, first of all, understanding when we talk about personality, what exactly are we talking about?
Well, you know, there are a lot of textbook definitions of personality. There are a lot of layman explanations of personality. Let me just kind of throw one other one into the ring. Let me describe personality as resulting from the combined dynamic interaction of our preferences in four areas of our life. Mm-hmm. In other words, there are four areas, how we prefer to function in that, they interact, and that can describe the kind of personality that we have.
Okay.
If I can elaborate on that a little bit, just to let your listeners know, okay, what are these areas? How do we differentiate them? Mm-hmm. And if I can use my wife and I as an example, you know Twyla.
Yeah.
And you know that we are totally different.
Yes.
You know, one of the areas that we're talking about, and you mentioned extroversion, introversion, really it's the area of how are we energized? How do we focus our energy? How are we energized? Some of us are energized by interacting with the outside world. Mm-hmm. We're energized by things, people, events, and we also focus our energy there. Others of us are energized by internal reflection, contemplation. We're energized as we are alone, not as we interact. And just to show you how that plays out during this COVID lockdown, I think I would have been fine with just Twyla and I, and lockdown. Hey, you know, I get energized by being alone, so no big deal. Uh-huh. However, we probably would not have survived. She probably would have killed me along the way. But we have 10 people on our compound, and so she is energized as she continually interacts with the orphans here and the others that we have, and that gives her energy.
Yes.
And so that's her focus. Quite different in that aspect. There's a second area where we take in information. You know, all of us are gathering information. Your listeners are gathering information right now.
Yeah.
And so we have a preference in how we gather information. Some of us take in information in a very linear, point by point, data by data, fact by fact.
Yeah.
What's important for the people are the facts, the present, the past. It's kind of like people sometimes have a filing cabinet in their mind.
Yes.
And you know, all the facts are listed in that cabinet. Others of us, we take in information in a big picture. Give me one or two data points and I'll draw you a conclusion in a picture. Some people have said to me that, you know, my head is in the clouds. I'm always thinking about the future,
yes.
possibilities for the future, what might be, what could be. It's not that the data is unimportant, but what I look for are the relationships, the patterns, how is the data related? And sometimes that has a greater reality than the facts.
Yes.
Now, Twyla is a very factual person. And so when we're talking and we're discussing something, she is going to shower me with facts. And that's part of her personality. I used to really revolt against that. I don't want your facts. I don't need your facts. I don't like your facts.
Yes.
I've already taken a few of them, come to a conclusion. But I have discovered that in those facts are nuggets of gold. And that these are the things that, because I'm not like that in my personality, I don't take in information like that. I miss some critical things that I need for decision making.
Wow.
And so I've discovered that in that area, you know, I prefer the big picture, future focus. She prefers the facts. That's how she takes in information. When we talk about the third area is how we make decisions.
Yes.
If I were to make a decision, I'm going to pull away from the situation.
Oh.
I'm going to look at it, cause and effect, logical conclusions, and I want to be fair in my decisions, so everybody is going to be treated exactly equal. Because that's impartial, because that's being fair.
Yeah.
Other people do not pull away from the situation, they move into the situation. They take, rather than a logical approach, they take an empathetic approach. They look at the people's values, what's going to be the impact on people, on how this is going to affect them. And they want to be fair. And their idea of fairness is everybody needs to be treated as an individual, as a unique individual.
Yes.
Well, obviously, my wife is on the empathetic moving into the situation.
Yes.
I'm on the cause and effect. When we were raising our 4 kids, I had rules, and it didn't matter about the child. If you broke the rule, it was cause and effect.
Yes.
And Twyla would be pleading with me, yes, but, you know, this is the situation. This is, and so even this aspect of our personality impacts our parenting and how we're raising children.
Yeah.
And then the last area is that of our approach to life. I look at life and I see decisions that need to be made.
Yes.
Structure, order that needs to be done. She looks at life and she sees options that need to be explored, opportunities. And so I want to make a decision on the facts, cut off the decision making. She wants to have lots of options and information and gather more information.
Yes.
So I cut it off too soon and she keeps it open too long.
Wow.
And so, again, how we approach life, how we make decisions, how we gather information, how we focus our energy, you combine all that together in a dynamic way, which means that they affect one another, and you come up with about 16 different personality types.
Wow. So Is this something we are born with, or is this something we acquire because of how we are raised up?
Well, I believe this is something that we are born with.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like being right-handed or left-handed. You're born either right-handed or left-handed. You can develop both sides of both hands, but you prefer one over the other.
Yeah.
I believe that these four areas, these four preferences, were born preferring one over the other. However, like our right and left hand, we use both.
Mm-hmm.
I may be a big picture person, but yet I also look at the detail.
Yeah.
I may prefer to be fair and impartial and cause and effect, but I can do both. In fact, I do both. All of us do both. So I think we're born with it, but obviously our upbringing impacts it, environment impacts it,
Yeah.
training impacts it. I can be with people. When I was teaching at the university, I would have a modular class, and I would be with a student 50 with a class 50 hours in 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have to be animated. You have to be alive. You cannot drone on as a dull professor.
Yes.
And so my students would think, oh, he must be extroverted. Well, no, but that's what I needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know that the next week I would take a week and just be alone to re-energize.
Wow.
Because of how much it took out of me. So we can do both.
Okay.
But one comes easy and natural, one does not. And I think we are born with a preference for one over the other.
Okay. Somebody's asking, why is it important for me as an individual to understand my personality?
Well, I think that not only is it important for us to understand ourselves, because then we can make better choices in how we function,
Mm-hmm.
but it also helps us as leaders. Let me give you two examples. If I'm going to make a decision, and I understand that my preference is normally to just use cause and effect,
Yeah.
to just use a logical approach. And I don't take into consideration the impact on the people who will have to, bear the consequences of my decision. I may make a decision that, while it may appear logical, it's not going to be the best in that particular situation.
Yes.
So I need to know what my preference is, where my weaknesses are, my blind spots, because all of us have blind spots, so that then I can make better decisions. Let me give you another example, though. Understanding, for example, with my wife and our marriage.
Yeah.
Understanding how we look at conflict. If I understand her conflict mode and my conflict mode, we can generally resolve conflict better. For example, all of us look at conflict through glasses.
Yeah.
Most of us have been told the first thing you have to do in conflict is define the issue.
Yes.
Not so.
Oh.
Because we have to know what glasses we're looking through. My particular personality looks at conflict and frames it in terms of right and wrong, authority, obedience, just do it, suck it up and get it done. Why don't you just, I mean, these are some of the terms I use.
Yes.
Twyla's personality, on the other hand, frames it in terms of internal values. And what that means is, if I'm in conflict with her, if her face suddenly falls and she suddenly says things like, well, okay, never mind, or you just do it your way, or, anything like that, and I see her backing off, I now understand that I have probably violated some internal value.
Wow.
Maybe with my voice, maybe with my actions, maybe with what I've said I'm going to be doing. And so now, rather than say, well, just go ahead and do this, I can pause and go, okay, let's talk about what just happened inside.
Yes.
And conflicts can be more easily resolved that way if I will take that approach. So understanding my personality, and how I function, understanding hers, understanding people I lead, a world of difference in how we can resolve conflict.
Okay, okay. Now, shortly we'll talk about the what are some of the main personality types, and maybe we can dig in a bit deep and understand them. And also inviting our audience this morning, if you have a question, send it in via SMS on 20316, WhatsApp 0786 316 316. Remember, we are talking about understanding your personality and why that's important. In studio with us via Zoom, Dr. Les Brickman, who is a life coach, giving us some understanding. Now, Dr. Brickman, I have a question here from Phoebe Nyeri. Phoebe is asking, does one's personality change once they come to Christ, or does it stay the same?
Phoebe, I think the personality stays the same, but obviously Christ can transform how you actually do it, how you live it out. Before I came to Christ, again, I'm looking at making decisions in terms of logic, in terms of just that objective approach. And I really didn't care much about who got hurt, what happened. It was either right and wrong and logical thing to do. In coming to Christ, one of the things he began to do was develop that other preference in me.
Yeah.
And so now, as I've really cooperated with that process, I look a lot more at what is going to be the people consequence, what's going to be the impact. And I actually take that and weigh that in my decision-making far more than I would have had I not been a Christian. I saw no need as an unbeliever, but as a believer, that is very important in terms of how I'm dealing with other people.
Yes.
So he takes these and he also then gives you an appreciation for other people in terms of embracing the differences that we have rather than fighting and trying to make everybody like yourself. So he does transform our personality, although the preferences will basically remain the same.
Okay, great. So let's get into what are some of the main personality types that we have?
Well, that's a really difficult question. I know that the DISC looks at, the DISC.
Yeah.
But the DISC is not a personality assessment. It is a 4-quadrant behavioral assessment. The DISC will tell you how you behave, not what your personality is. The same thing with the phlegmatic, melancholy. Again, that is not necessarily a personality assessment.
Oh.
So they're telling you things about yourself and making observations, but is it really personality? Technically, it's not considered personality. Even something like the MERIT, MERIT, merit assessment is a 4-quadrant behavioral assessment again.
Yes.
In terms of the personality, then, I would say as you're interacting with these 4 different areas, you come up with 16 different combinations. Each of them having blind spots, each of them having strengths, each of them being different in some way. I think you can say that there are typical characteristics for each personality type, but let me be clear, I do not believe that personality dictates behavior or is determinative of behavior.
Yes.
It can impact our behavior, but we still make free choices, especially as Christians. We have, God has given us the ability to make decisions, even contrary to how we might normally in our personality make those decisions and function. So it's not determinative of our behavior, but it does impact and influence our behavior.
I like that because sometimes we blame our personality on, this is just who I am, deal with it.
Yeah. And again, this is how we prefer to function. This is how we prefer to live. And yet I can change that. I can adapt. It's interesting. Let me give you one simple example. some people process out loud.
Yeah.
In other words, they think out loud. And you really don't know what they believe until you get to the end of the conversation, because they're processing. Others of us, myself included, we process internally. And so you ask me a question, very often you're going to get what's called the introverted pause, because I'm going to pause and I'm going to think, and I will do internally what other people do externally.
Yeah.
I'll go down blind canyons. I'll make wrong turns. I'll come to a conclusion and go, oh, no, that's not right. And then I'll come back. And then what you finally get is the bottom line after I've thought it through. Now, when you deal with people who think, who process externally, you know, I used to cut them off. Oh, no, that won't work. Well, that isn't right. Well, you can't go there. Now, if I let them talk, they would arrive at that conclusion on their own.
Okay.
Because they're doing out loud what I do internally. So that is a personality. I think that is an aspect of our personality, whether we process outwardly or inwardly. I know that as a professor, as a teacher, as a coach, trainer right now, I have an hour. My outcomes, the finals, are an hour one-on-one oral. And I have determined whether people process internally or externally. And so if I ask them a question, I'm going to let them, from their standpoint, ramble. It's not rambling. They're coming to a conclusion.
Yeah.
And I will not judge whether it's right or wrong until they finish. And so again, it's impacted even how I do, you know, as a professor, look at finals. Another example may be, you know, some people, you know, plan. I used to go to work with a fellow that said, "Plan your work and work your plan," and that he lived by that motto. And some of us plan everything.
Yes. And
others of us are energized by the last minute pressure that happen when you just have to get it done.
Yes.
Now, those of us who plan would look at those of you who are energized by the last minute pressure and saying, hey, you're lazy, you should have planned, etc. Not true. You're thinking about it long in advance. You're going over it. There's nothing, you know, pen to paper, so to speak, until the last minute. That is a basis. That's a trait of somebody who is more casual toward life, more spontaneous that I talked about, as opposed to that person who's more planful. And so these traits come out in various and sundry ways.
Okay. Does personality have anything to do with maybe calling or what you're gifted in doing? Is there a connection between the two?
I don't know that it's necessarily with gifting, but it may. I think there is an aspect of calling. You know, God is the one who has wired us.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have certain things that we do very easily, certain things that drain us of energy. I think that I'm thankful that God did not call me to be a salesman and to interact with people and to try to sell them, you know, products.
Yes.
Very honestly, I could not do what you're doing right now.
Yes.
I would come to the end of the day and I would crawl home. It would not energize me. Okay.
Yes.
I could do it for a while. And so the calling that we have, I do think God calls us consistent with how he's created us. So from that standpoint, I think there are families of jobs that make for a good career for different personality types.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that he may not call us to another area.
I like what you've said, and I'm just wondering, could that be a reason why we have quite a number of people who are frustrated with the jobs that they're doing. I mean, they have to get the job done because they have bills to pay, but it doesn't energize them. It becomes something that pulls away energy from them day after day after day. But because they've never understood how they are wired and their personality, they think, well, this is just the way life is, and they keep moving.
Yes, I think there are many, many people, and I run into many people like that. You know, do not, if you want to energize my wife, do not put her in front of a computer and have her work there all day. Okay?
Yes.
She hates that.
Yeah.
Her neck muscles tighten up. It drains her energy. That is not what God created her for. Now, I love being in front of a computer. My computer will tell me how much screen time I have each week.
Yes.
It doesn't bother me.
Okay. So how does one get to discover? You know, because I think it is such a sense of freedom. You know, earlier on you said you can't do what I do. And it's a lot of people ask me, how are you able to do that every day, every morning? You know, and it energizes me. It just energizes me. You know, there are days I walk into this studio and I'm so tired and drained, but the moment the lights come on and I'm told we are on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, let's go, something just happens and the energy comes. So how does somebody connect with that? How do you discover that?
Well, I work with leaders and helping them to discover who they are and how they can cooperate with that. I use two basic assessments. One is the Myers-Briggs type indicator. I use that both with adults and with children. That helps us begin to understand our basic personality type and typically how we would typically function. And I say typically function, again, because personality is not determinative of behavior, but we can say some typical things. I also use a pyramid personality integrator. What the pyramid does is it looks at our natural inclination and what our job or role demands of us.
Yeah.
Because if there's a great enough delta, what you're talking about, then there's stress, and we need to then learn how to deal with that stress. We also need to learn how to become more agile in what we're doing. You know, sometimes it's not a matter of, well, I need to change my career or change my job because, you know, it doesn't fit my personality. Sometimes we just, God is using that to stretch us and develop us and to develop that which is not normally comfortable.
Yes.
And so both those two assessments help an individual understand more about who they are and how they function.
Okay. Now, inviting your questions. Do you have any questions for us? We are at about 20 minutes before we get to 9 o'clock. Don't wait until 5 minutes before the end of the show and then you bombard me with 50 questions. I'm not that kind of a last-minute person, so if you have questions, throw them in now on 20316. WhatsApp 0786316316. Remember, we are talking about understanding your personality. Question, Dr. Les. Are there good and bad personalities, and can one change their personality?
No, I don't believe there are good and bad personalities. I believe that all personalities are basically good. All of us have weak areas. All of us have blind spots. All of us have strengths. And so I think each personality type has its blind spots and also its strengths. Can you change your personality? I think your basic personality is hardwired. However, can you develop outside of your personality? Can you develop traits that are not typically natural for you? Absolutely, yes. Now, in doing so, it may take more energy to actually accomplish whatever it is that you're changing. But the answer is yes. You can grow. We call that type development, by the way.
Okay.
In being able to develop outside of what our typical type might be.
What about, sometimes I find that sometimes for some people it's kind of hard to figure out what their personality is, because you have looking at introvert, extrovert, you kind of have both. There are people who, when they're in a public space, you're loud. When you're with other people, you're loud. But when you retreat to your own cocoon, you want to be alone. And so you tell people, I'm actually an introvert, but they're thinking no, because when we are together, you're the loudest. So how do you marry the two? Is that even possible?
Well, again, we're all both.
Okay.
We're not one or the other. Again, think right hand, left hand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we may prefer one over the other, and there may be times that the one is going to come out over the other. I shared with you about having to be extroverted when teaching a course at the university.
Yes.
And yet, I will prefer one over the other. I'm typically energized by one over the other. I typically focus my life on one over the other. But I'm certainly both. We're not all of one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it is, if you just look at the extroversion, introversion dichotomy, sometimes it's hard to understand, okay, well, so which am I? And that's why I said the personality is really the integration of 4 dynamic areas.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the one that we typically think about.
Yeah.
And they're in a dynamic relationship, which means that each one affects the other. So you tend to be one or the other. You prefer one or the other. You
Mm-hmm.
have one, it comes easier, but given certain situations, yes. Sometimes I will reach for my coffee cup with my left hand,
Mm-hmm.
even though I'm right-handed.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay.
Mama Kimberly is asking, how can I know my daughter's strengths or personality? She's not talkative. She talks under low tones, and you really have to dig for responses from her, and that usually comes in one word. She's a one-word kind of person. So the mother is wondering, how do I know her strength and how do I know her personality?
Wow. I'm assuming that the daughter is fairly young. Maybe a wrong assumption, but there are assessments that can help a parent understand the personality of their child so that they can cooperate with that personality, help develop it, and know how to interact.
Mm-hmm.
But even without knowing the child's personality, just by learning different ways of asking questions,
Yes.
to probe and to get somebody to begin to say more than just simply one word.
Mm. She says the daughter is 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then she is fairly young. So there are ways of ascertaining the typical personality of her daughter, but also in terms of just learning how to talk with her and communicate and ask powerful questions to draw her out.
Mm-hmm.
Is a totally different technique also.
Okay. Earlier on you talked about the fact that you train leaders, and I'm just wondering, in relation to what we are talking about, how important is it for a leader to understand their personality and the personalities of the people that they are leading? Because you're leading a group of people, each has their own personality, and sometimes it can get messy.
It can, and as a leader, if I know, for example, the personality of an individual that I'm leading, I may, for example, if I've got somebody on my team, let's talk about teamwork for a moment.
Yeah.
And on a team, you're going to have a number of different personality types. Well, if a team is going to interface with another team, I'm probably going to select somebody on the team who has more extroversion than introversion.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to be doing some research, or the team is going to be doing some research, and we're going to need the facts and the details, I'm probably going to assign a team member who I know is much more, we call them sensory oriented, who's going to look at those details and dig for the facts. If I have a team meeting, I know that some of those on the team, if I interact with the team, wow, they're going to interact. They're going to answer questions. They're going to be right up there giving their opinions to the team. And I know that others are going to be quiet, and by the time they frame an answer, we have passed on to a different topic.
Yes.
And so so as a leader, I want to be able to leave that team meeting and allow them time to process alone, and then maybe write me an email or give me feedback later after they had a time to process. So I want to be able to work with them as I understand their strengths.
So would you say that is
and help the team members to know that too?
Yeah. So would you say that is something that can actually be do or die in relation to how the team functions? You could be having the right people, but because you haven't understood their personalities, you end up giving them the wrong responsibilities, and it affects the morale and the performance of the whole team.
Absolutely. And if the team doesn't understand one another, they're going to rub each other the wrong way, and you're not going to have a team that is actually pulling together.
Okay, let's go back to the workplace and put on your coaching cape right now. So somebody comes to you and they tell you, Dr. Les, I'm finding it hard concentrating and working in the current job that I am in. I just feel like it doesn't energize me. The only reason I'm going to work is because I have to pay the bills, but I'm getting to a place where I feel like this job is not it for me. What would you tell that kind of a person?
Well, I would begin to ask a lot of questions about what is it that is de-energizing. What is it about your job that energizes you? What is it about your job that de-energizes you? Because again, they may have hired in and the job was a perfect fit, and all of a sudden their employer has given them a lot of ancillary responsibilities that drain them. And again, helping them to understand where their strengths, where their weaknesses are, where they're actually being energized, and then helping them to become more agile or flexible in those areas where maybe it's a little more draining, it doesn't fit who they are, but there are ways of dealing with that stress and ways of becoming more agile in their job. And it's not that they're in the wrong job, but they need to grow in aspects of their job.
I like that because many times we make the assumption this is not the job for me. I'm in the wrong place. I need to move out and go somewhere else. And I've seen sometimes people making that move and they end up somewhere else, and a few months later they regret and they're thinking, I think I need to go back. This one is far much worse than the other one. Yeah. So Dr. Les, we have about 3 minutes. How do you want to wrap this whole conversation up?
Well, just by encouraging your audience to begin to discover more about who they are, how God has created them. We talk about the inner design of an individual. It includes our personality, includes our spiritual gifts. It includes our strengths and our weaknesses and our skills. And I believe that inner design, understanding how God has created us, allows us to cooperate with those processes to actually fulfill better the destiny that God has for us. And the personality is, I think, a large part of that inner design, but that whole area, I believe, is critical to achieving our destiny and our purpose in Christ.
Wow, that's good. Somebody had asked earlier, you had mentioned some 2 tests. They wanted you to say them again. You had mentioned the Myers-Briggs.
One is called the MBTI. It stands for the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And if you have somebody between the ages of grade 3 and form 4, there is an MBTI or a Myers-Briggs type indicator for children, which is a Murphy-Byskier type indicator for children. It does the MBTI, but it's for children, not adults. The other one is the Pearman Personality Integrator. And we use that a lot with individuals in business who are perhaps struggling between what they naturally would like to do and what the job demands or the life demands are demanding of them, and how to deal with the tension, how to then become more agile and flexible.
Okay, great.
So it's the MBTI, Myers-Briggs type indicator, and then the Pyramid Personality Integrator.
Great. So if somebody wanted to maybe get in touch with you, do you have a social media handle? Is there a way they can get in touch with you?
We do. You can either call 0700-376-649 and ask for us. We do have a website, SCMI Kenya, scmikenya.com. We are also on Facebook and other social media. So you can look for SCMI on Facebook also for SCMI Kenya.
Okay, great. Dr. Les, thank you for giving us your time this morning. Truly appreciate that conversation.
Okay, pleasure to be here.
Great. We are done with our conversation for today. As the doctor has said, you can find them on social media, or you can check out their webpage, SCMI.
SCMI.
Yes, scmi.com, or find SCMI on Facebook.
Oh, SCMI Kenya.
scmikenya.com. Yeah, scmikenya.com. Check them out, and maybe you want to push this discussion another level with them, then feel free to do so. I'm out of time for our discussion for today. Thank you so much for being a part of Motivation Monday on Jam 316. I pray our conversation today has been beneficial to you.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs, from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.